So here we are with Miss Walker. She was Eastern's Teacher of the Year last year.
What a great question, Mike. I actually didn't get into teaching. I came to be a guidance counselor here. And you had to teach for 3 years before you could be a guidance counselor. So I started teaching and I loved it and I never went back. So it's a great example of how having goals is important, but you never know kind of really necessarily where you're going to go with it. I would never have thought it would be a teacher. 20 years this next month, Ava. Yes, they have. I substitute taught at Woodbury for 1 day in the middle school, but other than that, I've been entirely at Eastern. Oh my gosh, teenagers are just so funny. I, every day, go home laughing. Sometimes also crying, but mostly laughing. And there's just things they'll say and then they just wait for you. Like, I asked a kid today, why were we in the Spanish-American War? And he said, because. And I really didn't have a comeback for that. So, I mean, I just never know what someone's going to say. So it's just the greatest job that way. Okay. So currently I teach US 2, history, and sociology, Excel. And I've also taught US 1 and 2 honors and Excel, sociology honors in Excel, psych AP in Excel, economics, personal finance, constitutional law, and I think that's it. Wow. Well, you know, I think I don't want to teach this because it's really, really hard. But world history, I wish I was more of an expert in it because it just connects to everything. And I happened to see Mr. Traintner's world history class last year, and I really then regretted not knowing a lot more than I do. So I wish that I knew more, but it's too hard to take on right now. I go to the beach, but also when you have a new class, you usually have to pretty much work all summer, though you can be relaxed about it because you're working at home. So this summer I prepared for my history class, which is new. I didn't have to prepare as hard for sociology because that was my major. And then this summer I got Google certification 1 and 2. So I would know how to, you know, what tools to use with my students, what would be best for them. I do, yeah. One of my degrees is in technology, actually. And it's a direction I went in that wasn't really the right direction for me personally, permanently. But the good part was I really learned how programming works and how to be a programmer. And not to say there aren't frustrations, but it gave me a sense of things. So, oh sure, it's so much more efficient. And actually today we did a Kahoot. No, we did a Quizlet and a quizzes, which are slightly different. So, and I said to the students, "Are you happy to do this?" And they said, "Yes, we really learned better this way." So back in the day, you had to outline everything and then retype it and then memorize it and highlight it. And not to say that that's not good sometimes, because it is, but everything doesn't have to be that hard. So when we can use technology to make things easier for students, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled, yeah. Every day's a new day, both for me and the kids. So if the kid's having a bad day and they don't act properly, we just, the next day, new day, new day. Well, I'm really grateful to the people that hired me, Suzanne Gonkel and Michael Good. And Michael was just, they both passed, and he was very compassionate about kids. And Suzanne Gonkel, also a principal, she gave me great advice. She said, whatever decision you make it in favor of the kid. In other words, you. Which doesn't mean let them off easy all the time. You know, have high standards, but if you aren't sure what to do, go towards the kid. And that's been the best advice ever. So that's what I would use on, yeah, that's what I would use. My peers, actually, I've gotten to see Mr. Brown and Mrs. Ponrant and Mr. Traintner and Mrs. Davis and Mrs. Leeson, among many others. And it's actually intimidating because they're great, and it makes me really work so hard because I just love how they are. No matter what they teach, it's just exciting. And I haven't even mentioned everyone I saw, but it's just like a great staff. It's a great community of teachers, and you always feel like people you can depend on, your other teachers, and it's just great. I hope that I always am able to. I mean, it's the goal. I guess that's for me, the biggest thing about being an adult versus being a kid is when you're an adult, you have to be there for your customer. And in a sense, that's who you guys are. So you don't really get to have a down day. When I was a programmer, when you work at a desk in a company and you're having a down day, oh yeah, you just take that phone off the hook and you deal with it tomorrow, because tomorrow's another day. And sometimes that's the right thing to do. But with students, you might be having a worse day than me. And you may come to me and I may, at the end of the day, feel so much better if I could be there for you. So it kind of is better if you just try to tough it out, because you'll find that by the end of the day, whatever bothered me, because as an adult you have a lot of strength and a lot of power, and you guys don't. So sometimes if a kid comes to me and they've had a horrible day, they've been bullied, and I can help them, I can feel like I have a superpower that they don't have. So I guess that's how I would deal with that, is to think, what's the big picture? I think when I see a kid at graduation that I know maybe didn't think they could graduate, and generally it's nothing that I had anything to do with. It might even just be a kid I know from the hallway. And when I see them graduate, when I see them come around up the AstroTurf to come and sit, I just feel so moved, because then I feel like it's Easter and I got them there, and it's like, I would say it's like a family, because that's kind of trite, but there's so many good teachers here that someone reached out to that kid and got that kid over the hump, and that feels amazing. Just to see that, to be part of it. I feel so lucky, guys. I can't even tell you how lucky I feel. It's shocking. Had I known this would be so much fun, I would have been a teacher earlier. I wasn't a teacher till I was 41, and I tell this to you so that you can understand that there may not be a straight trajectory. So you may not so much flail, but you may try different things, and that's okay. That said, I wish I had known this sooner, that it was really, really cool. So I guess I would say keep an open mind, because a few people suggested teaching to me, and I said, well, I don't like school, but being a student and being a teacher are really different things. And the world changed, and school got more fun, became more fun than it used to be. So you may not think that, but it's true, at least by my experience. Mostly it was probably me. I don't like being told what to do. So when teachers would say, read this or that, foolishly sometimes I would say, no. Well, who was I to say that? That's crazy. But I would, and at the other hand, I sometimes a perfectionist, so I wouldn't want to make a mistake. So I was a little too easy on myself, and then a little too hard on myself at the same time, which was hard. And the other thing about it was way before the Me Too time, and so for women, this was from 70 to 74. So the opportunities for women were there technically, but you still would be told things like, you're really smart for a girl. And to hear that qualification again and again was a little disheartening, because you could read between the lines and you can hear that the person's saying, nah, don't bother. So I'm very, very pleased that to a great degree, the world is more fair than it was, though I think there's still quite a ways to go in terms of gender and race bias and class bias especially. But it was that. Plus I went to 2 different high schools, and so I didn't really bond, I just was, and that's, my heart really goes out to students who transfer in or out, because I know how hard that is. I just know how hard that is. So that's mainly why. I grew up in North Philly, and then we moved in 9th grade. So I grew up in the city, right near LaSalle, and so I was kind of a city kid. And then we moved to a farming area, and that wasn't easy to have. Instead of neighbors and traffic, I had cows. And, I just couldn't really get in the groove. I was just too old. I was 14 and kind of who I was. And we moved to a suburban place that was very much like Eastern. So, I'm a Philadelphian at heart, and so I moved back here. So, thank you for asking. That is my personal favorite question, and I will bring that up within 10 seconds if you were to meet me on the street. So. I would have worked harder on my French homework. I would have. I thought I couldn't do it because I had to say J'ai 14 ans again and again and again. I couldn't get it right, which means I am 14. And it only is useful for about a year. But I was so shy that I kind of foreclosed. There's like a developmental foreclosure thing. And I just thought, I can't do language. And it is harder, but I wish I pushed myself more. I had a very nice teachers. And I learned that, and I learned fermer la bouche, Marianne, because I wouldn't stop chatting in class. So I got disciplined that way. But I wish I had just been a better person. Again, kids are just so funny in class. I think my hobby, if I had one, especially if I was funny, would be comedy, because I just love comedy. So unfortunately, I have no talent. So, but I'm able to enjoy fun and funniness all day long, every day, because of the funny things kids say. And I couldn't even give you an example, because it's literally, it already happened like 4 times in my 2 classes. I mean, a kid made a joke about imperialism today. Like, what's that about? It was great. So I just laugh. Sometimes I wake up laughing, actually, because the things they say are so funny. So it's really that. My favorite joy is to laugh. Not once. No, not once. Though, you know, I did 2 other jobs that I really liked. 2, which was once I was a DJ. It was so awesome. And that was great. But I couldn't do the turntables, so I like aged out of it because I don't have that hand-eye coordination. That was bad. But before that, I could pick, and I had a radio show which I liked a lot, and I also was a social worker, which I liked a lot. So no, but I did that in the past, so I don't regret that. No, once I've done this, I never look back. Never, not for a day. Did I look back? No, in fact, I feel incredibly lucky every day, like every day. So, well, I almost have to disagree with. I am very lucky. There are easily 50 people that could be in this chair in terms of teacher of the year, like easily. I just happened to get nominated, and so it really luck is a big part of that, and that's another thing I'm really grateful for. I mean, I could just name names on and on that I think are superior teachers, to be honest with you. So I'm happy to have the luck. You know, I'm grateful for it, and I'm completely shocked because I see what's out there, and it's intimidating. These teachers are amazing. So I don't know if I can answer that question. Shock. Oh yeah. Because again, there's so many people here that, I can't even describe it. Well, that's a great question. I was standing right where the seat is, and Mr. Tull was on the announcements, and I had a few of my AP Psych students here, and he was making the announcement, and I heard him mention a couple of my classes, but I'm kind of a low-profile person. I don't know if you guys know what I mean. I'm kind of a quiet person, not a quiet student, so I don't expect to be popular or anything, or even noticed. I just don't. I hate to say that, but it's true. And so when he started saying it, I thought, nah, I can't be. And I actually said to one of my students, watch, it'll be me, because it was like I was being sarcastic. And then it was. And the only reason and then I went into like shock. And when I looked in the hallway, all the history students were in the hallway, like smiling at me in their Thai way. They're like, oh, good job, Marianne. And I was like, what? Because they're nuts, and it was like lined up. And so, I was shocked, honestly, it really was. And then a couple of my students happened to come down the hallway, like Kristen came down and she gave me a big hug, and that was really nice. So it started being more real. And it took about a week for it to really sink in. And now every day I wake up and I'm like, I can't believe this, I just can't. So, oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I did a little tiny thing with the WXPN, like one little, like I was a co-host on the show like 20 years ago. I don't remember the name of it, but we got to interview people. And so when Mr. Bound said, you guys were going to interview me, I totally can appreciate that because I love interviewing people. And so we got to interview some political people. And then I had one in college that was in public affairs. So I would play a couple like Clash tunes, and then I would interview like an organic farmer or someone who was doing, you know, kind of progressive type stuff. And I loved it. I just absolutely loved that. I hope you're enjoying this. Although after probably 20 minutes of me, you're like, next. But it was great, it was great. I think I would have dinner with FDR, and I would say, hey, what's up with that court packing? Giving Democrats a bad name. That's what I would say. A lot of chutzpah to think you're going to give FDR a bit of a hard time, but here's where I wish I could speak more intelligently about world history, because I think there are definitely thinkers and speakers out there who, but I can't really state that any further. I would say, I'm going to take like a U-turn and say, Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach would be, it's not words, but there's information in there that I can feel, and again, I don't have really any knowledge of that either, except to tell you that. So, and I don't know that I have superlatives actually, because I can see every single day every day in at least some of my students, and ultimately in all of my students, genuine like goodness, and sort of almost like, as Carl Jung would say, like an essential humanity, I guess, in each of you, so that I don't really look outside of that. I would see it in individuals. I don't know if that's clear at all, but I think we have it inside us. You know, showing up on time and getting your work in on time is because I've had many jobs, and so this is like my 24th job, if you know. And every single one of those jobs had one thing in common: you had to be on time and you had to work really hard. And I wish my students could kind of understand that. So whether I was working here at Eastern or at Shared Medical Systems, a big national corporation, or honestly, the Margate Dairy Bar. Anywhere that I've worked there too, wherever I've worked, that's the bottom line. So when students are unhappy when the teachers kind of hold them to get it in on time, they don't really understand that that's a skill that's permanent. No matter where you go in life, if you're in the military, if you have a job, if you're a parent, you have to get things done on time. And slipping once in a while makes sense, but you want to be in the habit of getting things done on time, and that will carry you. You know, I think that's a hard thing to ask of you guys, like not to take yourself too seriously, because this is the hardest time of your life, I think. I mean, certainly if you were to be older and say have a disabled child or a tragedy befall you, that will be a harder time. But right now, you have all these individual pressures on you, and yet you have a lot of collective responsibilities. So you have to get good grades, but work in teams. And you have to learn what it is like to date, but make sure that no one mistreats you. And think about your future, but enjoy the moment. That's really hard, guys. Really, really hard. And try new things, but learn to find who you are. It's excruciating. So I really don't really want to have a way where I say you should be such and such a thing, because your life's really hard. And honestly, the country's a little fractured right now, and that, for a corollary, when 1972 occurred, when President Nixon was being elected and so on, that things were in a bit of an uproar of Watergate. I'd say it's a little harder even now. So, no, I think just hang in there, trust your instincts, and otherwise I would hesitate to give any advice about how you should be. How would I know, how you should be? Say thank you to your parents. I think being a sociologist, one of the things I think about is our trends in employment. And so one of the concerns I have is the type of employment that'll be available to you going forward is not the same world that I came up in. Even though the world I came up in was beginning to be post-industrial, which we didn't necessarily know at the time, in that there wouldn't be as many 9-to-5 jobs. now it's much more an economy where you get this small job and that small job and try and put it together. And I have 3 worries about that. One is health insurance, because those jobs tend not to offer health insurance, and you really need it even if you're low. 2, and even as equally important, school loans. So many of you have your school is so much more expensive, and then when you take loans out, you have to pay them off with these multiple side jobs. That's really, really hard. And then 3rd, you're going to want to relax and find out who you are in your 20s and meet someone, or have a series of people that you meet to learn and grow, and maybe grow a family, and maybe you could buy a house or something, and that will make that hard. So I see this kind of collision out there for you in terms of maybe the 4th thing is housing is expensive. So between housing, healthcare, student loans, and economic factors, I worry. And so for the last 5 years, not this year, but I taught personal finance with a passion, because I wanted students to take out as little loans as they can and do everything they could. Or into the military, or going to take a year off, or you're doing 2 and 2. Any kind of loan, any kind of debt can really hurt you, because it can grow exponentially. So, and I think you guys know what that means from that. That would be my worry, is that you will not have some opportunities because life's harder for you. I would probably be a social worker at some point, some part. Yeah, I really like helping people a lot. If I couldn't help people, I don't know what I would do. I paid very poorly, and it also was really hard, and emotionally really hard. And it wasn't that I thought I couldn't do it, but I thought I couldn't do it forever, because I thought my heart would just break. So I left and became a computer programmer for a while to make money. And then the reason I got into education, one day at work, it was a day it would take your children to work day, and so people brought their kids in, their teenagers, and I got to coordinate that, because I like helping people. And I got to hang out with all the teenagers, and they were so funny. They were I don't want to say this, but they were stealing paper out of the computer area and making posters and signs and airplanes and saying inappropriate things. And it was my favorite day at that job. And I'd been there for 8 years, and I thought, oh my God, I've been doing this job for 8 years, and I never had this good of a day. And then I started thinking, that's not a way to live. So I went and got a degree at Villanova to be a counselor, and then came here as a teacher. So you can like a job, like I like programming, but if there's one big thing that's missing, it can kind of kill you. So that I didn't realize I really just always loved working with teenagers. Even when I was one, I worked with teenagers. And I guess because I'm the oldest of 5, it feels like a natural role for me. It was just so much fun. And I had a great boss, Mike Good, and I felt like I could make a similar difference with my kids by working with them in a day-to-day way, this way. And I don't love the lesson planning part, no one does, it's hard, but I guess it was just so much fun. I thought, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, this is amazing. So just go for it. So that's why, because it was just fun. I had just the funniest kids. They were just so funny. Honestly, guys, now you know me well enough. I had kids that would do a Miss Walker impression that was spot on. My mom couldn't have told me from that kid. They were so good. So that was so interesting. A little, insulting, but they were just great. And I thought, this is great. And it hurts my feelings, but it's great. So I went on with it. I don't know if that makes any sense. But I like all Eagles, all Philly teams. Probably I'm a baseball person because it's the least overtly violent of the games. I did see the Sixers in 1967, and which back when no one had seatbelts. So one of my friend's dads was taking everyone to a Sixers game, and he basically opened the back door, and everyone in the neighborhood piled in. So there were kids stacked to the ceiling, and we all went to a Sixers game. I think I saw Chet Walker, maybe Lou Alcindor, something like that. So yeah, basketball and baseball, my favorites. I do like Carson Wentz. I actually really like Nick Foles. I think he did a great job when he did that. I don't know, was it touchback or something? When he made that touchdown at the Super Bowl, dang, that was good. So I just like give that guy respect for being, you know, number 2. He really came through. So I like it because he was kind of underdog. You know, I have not seen the ones that I always would love. It's mainly comedians that I've seen that I really love. I did see Cher twice. Worth it. See Cher. I never saw the Beatles, one of my few regrets in life. But I did see Carol Burnett, who I adore, and Lily Tomlin, who I adore, Kathy Griffin, Dick Gregory. I saw Dick Gregory, who's a comedian, and one of my very favorite things, I saw him in Philadelphia, and we were at this small affair, and Dick Gregory, he's dead now. He came out and he was a 60s comedian who was basically a pro progressive things. But listen guys, you're not going to see where this is going. He came out and he said, before I start the show, I want to introduce someone here who means a lot to all of us. And I'm thinking, who could it be? And he said, I'm going to tear up here. He goes, Rosa Parks is in the audience. My goodness, guys. So we turned around, and in fact, Rosa Parks was in the audience. So for me, my hero, I guess if I could go back, really, my personal hero is Dr. King. And I grew up, and the loss of him, and the Kennedys, and Rosa Parks, and Emmett Till, and all those things are really very central to my core. And so when we saw Rosa Parks, and the whole place blew up, and it was a rainbow of people, it was a rainbow of ages, and everyone stood up, and there was thunderous applause, and everyone was crying. It was something that was beautiful that when I was little, I always sort of wished would occur, because, you know, I grew up kind of a little bit before the civil rights movement, where, you know, I would turn on the TV and see people that tried to vote get shot down with water cannons and get dogs sick on them. And so that will affect you, you know, when you're a kid. So I guess that is my deepest motivation, is to rectify that and to kind of try to explain why that's so important. But to see Rosa Parks was great. And so that's a place for me where comedy can make some connections, because comedians can say things that we always can't say, or make available things that we always can't make available. Music's important too. I saw The Pretenders, they were awesome. It is. I went to see President Obama's second inauguration, and you know, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you can appreciate how we came from Emmett Till being murdered for speaking, literally speaking, to having an African American president. And one of the coolest parts, it was actually a little retro moment. It was packed, first of all. And then second of all, we were there, and we were so far away from even the jumbotrons that we couldn't hear anything. But something happened that was such an old school thing. This one guy had a giant boombox, and he brought out this giant boombox, so he had the speech that President Obama was making on the radio. And again, just as with the Dick Gregory thing, there was a group of us. So he has like this 1980 technology, and then again a rainbow of people. And now I'm one of the old people, like listening in, and we could hear President Obama. And again, we're looking around and we're seeing this new America that is just an incredible thing to be a part of. So yeah, so behave, because your reputation sticks with you. So don't do any bad stuff. It's a little bit like the military. You don't want to be, you know, getting DWIs and stuff like that, and then because you got to be a role model. It's intense. Like you can't just be throwing down outside. You have to be very formal in a way, which is for a Philly kid something I had to think about. Harriet the Spy. That's a children's book, Harriet the Spy, and also Pippi Longstocking. Those two books were incredibly formative. Well before the Me Too movement, Harriet and Pippi were out there in books, and the Ramona series as well. Because there weren't really, girls were expected to read, you know, books that had boy protagonists, which is fine. But I just really needed to hear a girl's voice, and they were. That was thankful. God, I love you guys. Can you come back tomorrow? We have so much freedom as teachers, and yet we're also really challenged. So no one, I don't think generally, micromanages us. I mean, we get watched, but no one says to me, oh, you know, Miss Walker, did you discuss anti-imperialism today on on September 24th, which many schools do, which would be a nightmare. I couldn't do it. And also we get fantastic kids and a very diverse group of kids. And I don't think I could work in non-diverse. I think we could be more diverse than we are, but I think that diversity is really key to me. Thank you. I love the former Eastern Bloc countries. So I've been to the Czech Republic, and I've been to East Berlin. So it's very interesting to me, countries that used to be communist. So Bulgaria, things like that. I would travel there too, because those people are my age, and they grew up with communism. And the idea that you would be in a communist or totalitarian state, and then suddenly not, is just shocking to me. So I just want to sort of understand that. I have 2 cats. I used to have 3. Buddha's in heaven. But I have 2 girls, Dewey and Stevie. And one of them's very chill. She was like a foundling. And one of them I've raised since she was 2 ounces, and she's so demanding. She's such a baby. Oh my gosh, she got me up today at 4. So
Dewey, is that D-U-E-Y?
Dewey, D-E-W-E-Y.
D-E-W-E-Y?
E-Y, yeah, and then Stevie is like Stevie Wonder.
I-E?
I-E, yeah. And so they're both girls. I love cats. I love dogs too, but dogs are like having kids. Too hard, so I love my cats. Thank you so. I'm obsessed with pho, which is not actually pronounced pho. It's pronounced in a way that is almost a swear word, but it's spelled P-H-O, and it's Vietnamese soup. Who's had it? Oh my God, I'm obsessed. So Pho 75 on Washington Avenue, tell them I sent you, is the best. But there are pho places now out here in New Jersey too, and so that would be. And in New York, I go up to Baxter Street, which is Chinatown, and I find a pho place there. Pretty much the same place every time. I actually went to school, though not in Manhattan. I was outside of Manhattan, so it's small community. Yeah, I love New York, Lower East Side, Village, all that business. So fun. Well, there was a playground. I went to Logan Elementary School in Logan, and I only went there for kindergarten, but there was a playground there, and it had something called I'll have to email you guys this answer, but it'll come back to me in a moment, but you would run and take these ropes, and you would run and you could spin yourself in the sky and come down. It was amazing, and the older you got, like the ropes would just get higher, and I can't believe I can't remember. I still have all the worn part on my hand,